I've been meaning to give the Amiga more love on my channel for quite some time. It is, after all, the greatest platform of all time. In this mini-series we'll be looking at some of the games that never left the Amiga, and we're starting with shooters. The Amiga had some great shooters, but most of them, especially the more well-known ones, were either ports themselves or were Amiga games that were subsequently ported to other systems, particularly the Atari ST and/or DOS, as well as numerous home consoles. But let's have a look at some of the shooters that were exclusive to the Amiga. Uridium II was developed by Andrew Braybook, a sequel to his 1986 original on the Commodore 64, published in 1993 by Renegade. If you've played the original Uridium, then this will be familiar to you, as it's basically a polished version of the same game, although there are significant improvements and some differences. It's a side-scrolling shooter presented top-down, wherein you're piloting your craft over a large spaceship. Shoot enemy craft and turrets until you're instructed to land, an example of the cool in-game speech. A female voice introduces each level and announces collected power-ups and so on. When you land, you then get a little mini-game where you attack the ship's reactor, earning you several power-ups. There are power-ups to collect during the main levels too, which award you several bonuses including different weapons, a shield, etc. The side-scrolling is improved upon from the original because the play area is larger, meaning the screen also scrolls vertically. In the original, the entire vertical length of the ship was shown on screen at once. The graphics are lovely and feel very Amiga, and the music is an advanced take on the originals too. It just feels like Uridium, but thanks to the Amiga's capabilities everything is turned up to 11. Smooth as hell and controls very well, definitely one to check out. Apidya is arguably the best side-scrolling shooter on the Amiga, and being an exclusive, it's one you won't experience anywhere else. Developed by Kaiko, it was published in 1992 by Playbyte. You control a bee, and all the enemies are either insects or other garden pests, which are either airborne, ground-based, or on scenery, for example crawling on plants. You can collect power-ups in the form of flowers, or flower-ups, but your firepower is reset when you die. Upgrading your shot makes your standard forward-facing shot more powerful and also adds little bomb-like projectiles which are useful for attacking enemies below you. You can also hold down the fire button for a more powerful bee sting attack. Weirdly, the stinger is massive, longer even than the bee. You can also collect these little bee satellites that function as options. The levels are really colourful. They start off outdoor or garden themed, fitting with the insect theme, but later levels are more out there in design. Colliding with the terrain kills you, and it can be quite frustrating when you're trying to shoot enemies on the ground, as I often hit the floor. The soundtrack was composed by Chris Hulsbeck, so it's an absolute banger. The sound and graphics are just superb in this game, and it has the gameplay to back it up, a combination that can be a rarity with Amiga shooters. It's no walk in the park, and some enemies can be very fast moving, but it's damn good fun. Agony was developed by Art and Magic, published by Psygnosis in 1992. A side-scrolling shooter, you control an owl, flying through a gorgeously drawn fantasy landscape, shooting all types of weird fantastical enemies. You can collect power-ups in the form of potions which increase your shot size, eventually making it pretty huge. You can also collect swords which act as options, increasing your firepower significantly, as well as several other power-ups. The scenery is absolutely nuts in this game. It has it all. Great parallax scrolling, loads of detail, and some absolutely stunning effects like roaring ocean waves and raging fires, plus loads of little elements going on in the background. The owl looks great too, with smooth animated wings. The enemies are a bit lackluster in comparison though. The intro screens and the screens between levels are all well drawn too, just a gorgeous game. The music is very dramatic and epic, not your typical shoot 'em up soundtrack. It really fits in with the fantasy theme, although perhaps an odd choice for the genre. Sadly, the gameplay doesn't align with the quality of the visuals, so it's not the greatest shooter in technical terms, and it's very hard. Cardiaxx is a side-scrolling shooter developed by Eclipse Design, published by Electronic Zoo in 1991 and later republished by Team 17. This looks fantastic but really falls down on the controls. You fly left or right and can control your ship's speed, avoiding hazards and shooting oncoming enemies, and you can upgrade your firepower. Once you kill a set of enemies, areas will open up, allowing you to progress. It's just annoyingly difficult to control, making it very hard to avoid collisions. The in-game music is very aggressive, like a hybrid of jump up drum and bass and metal with similar intensity. Pretty good actually, and there's some cool robotic digitised speech. Perhaps the weirdest design choice is the huge score displaying across the screen in the first level, which can be quite off-putting. Cardiaxx looks great, but at the end of the day just isn't fun. Datastorm was developed and published by Visionary Design in 1989. This was inspired by Defender, so if you're familiar with Defender or its clones, then you know what you're getting here. You fly your ship across a planet which scrolls horizontally and wraps around. You have a map at the bottom showing you environmental objects, although it's very simplistic. The aim is to rescue these little spinning things on the ground, whatever they are, and deliver them to this warp gate. You shoot enemies and avoid colliding with the terrain, you know the drill. Sound effects are again quite basic and there's no in-game music. It feels more like an 8-bit micro game than an Amiga game, to be honest. Although it's primitive visually by Amiga standards, it's a very competent Defender clone with smooth and very fast movement, so if you're a fan of these types of games then it's absolutely worth a look. Hybris was developed by Copecom and published by Discovery Software in 1989. This is one of the more traditional vertical shooters on the Amiga. It looks quite good for 1989 standards, with vibrant landscapes that you pilot your ship over, scrolling vertically up the screen. Enemies are in the air and also ground-based like turrets. Some have shields too that absorb your shots, so you have to physically pass these, which turns them off before shooting and destroying them. There are several upgrades including a variety of shot types. At some points my weapons seem to just randomly change, so I don't know if I'm missing something there. Then there are also smart bomb attacks which destroy all enemies on the screen. The music is okay, albeit forgettable. Overall a fun little shooter. Amnios is a top-down multi-directional shooter developed by Flying Chicken Software and published by Psygnosis in 1991. This is quite a weird game. You can move in all directions shooting enemies, but the momentum of your craft makes it very hard to control, particularly when trying to avoid collisions or dodge enemy fire in a hurry. The ship's inertia kind of feels like asteroids in that you just drift about due to momentum even when you stop actively moving. I was quite confused about what to do in this game. The levels are sort of a living landscape and there's a map at the bottom right showing you where the living parts are as well as the enemies. Shoot enough of these and the screen turns red, then you get a boss fight. You can also rescue humanoids, although I'm not entirely sure what that gets you. The sound design isn't great, no in-game music here, and the sound effects are pretty run-of-the-mill. It's an okay game, but a bit hectic and repetitive. The Oath was developed by Jonathan Small, published by Attic Entertainment in 1991. I'll admit I'd never even heard of this one prior to making this video. A side-scrolling shooter, this has quite a cool twist with the weapon upgrade system in that you collect the individual parts of a weapon before it's assembled and can then be used. The weapons are quite large compared to your ship and hang below it. Your ship is unfortunately quite slow and this movement speed can make it tricky to avoid hazards, although a speed upgrade is available. There are other power-ups too, like a spiked ball that orbits your ship, and of course upgrades to firepower plus smart bombs. The graphics are lovely, although I did find some of the levels a bit too dark. This makes it very hard to see environmental hazards, not to mention the fact that a lot of the enemies are the same colour as the background, so I ended up colliding with the scenery a lot. I'm really not a fan of shooters where you have to constantly worry about crashing into things. The Oath does look really good visually, very clean and crisp, and the music is also pretty decent. Pioneer Plague was developed by Bill Williams, published in 1988 by Mandarin Software and Terrific Software. Another bizarre game, the main levels are top-down multi-directional shooter. In between levels you get a 3D almost rail shooter level where your ship enters quote sub-Euclidean plane. In these you have a reticule to shoot, controlled using the mouse. The gist is that an infected probe is travelling from planet to planet destroying the indigenous life, and it's your aim to stop it. The main levels see you flying your ship over a cityscape and to be honest are quite boring. Your ship does have drones which can be deployed, and you can use the joystick to program their flight patterns to be either aggressive or defensive. The colour scheme is very garish. Pioneer Plague utilises the Amiga's ham or hold and modify display mode, which allows 4096 colours on screen at once. The box promises dazzling ham mode graphics with 4096 on screen colours, but isn't implemented very well, instead looking like an early 90s tie-dye t-shirt. I suppose it looks decent enough for 1988, but it's just too loud for my taste, although the 3D wireframe levels do look good. The music is very cheesy and would better suit an 80s sitcom than a shoot 'em up. Probably give this one a miss. Banshee was developed and published by Core Design in 1994. Despite being a core game, its graphics are reminiscent of the Bitmap Brothers games, especially the Chaos engine, with a steampunk vibe and similar graphics and colour palette, particularly the cutscenes and in-game menus. This is the most familiar arcade style shooter on the list by far, and unlike the sci-fi themes of most games on this list, sees you piloting an aeroplane, playing much like games like 1942. Actually, the story is science fiction, involving an alien invasion in a divergent timeline, but hey, who pays attention to the story in a shooter? The visuals are absolutely gorgeous, being a late release in Amiga terms and an AGA-only game, which by the way also made it to the CD32. The stunning levels are absolutely huge leading up to the boss fights. There are myriad power-ups, and you can shoot them to change the power up, allowing you to strategically choose which is most useful to you at the time. These include firepower upgrades, health, extra lives and bonus points. Oh, and extra loop the loops which your plane can perform. There's loads of enemy variety, both air and ground based, and the weather effects are just brilliant. There's rain, snow and fog, which just adds such a nice level of detail to the already clean and crisp visuals. Honestly, just a fantastic looking Amiga game. The game's only downfall is its lack of in-game music, which is a shame. Despite the good sound effects, the absence of music is notable. Still, Banshee is arguably the best shooter on the Amiga. Zarathrusta was developed by WizKids, published by Hewson in 1991. This is described as a multi-directional shooter, but I think that's a very loose fit to be honest. It's inspired by Thrust, which is one of my favourites on the BBC Micro, and the gameplay is in principle the same. Guide your ship over the landscape by steering the craft left and right and using your thrusters to move. Then use your tractor beam to collect objects and deliver them to your mothership above the planet. The main difficulty is avoiding colliding with the environment, which is very hard, especially when towing an object. You can activate a force field to protect you, but that depletes your fuel very quickly. There are ground-based defences which you have to shoot, which I suppose is the shooter aspect of the game, but as I said, I wouldn't call this a shooter. A bit too tricky for me. I think I'd stick to the original Thrust. Disposable Hero was developed by Euphoria, published by Gremlin in 1993. This also got a CD32 release. Quite a traditional side-scrolling shooter this one, but a very well made one. It's absolutely gorgeous with really vivid, colourful levels. Much like Agony, there's so much going on in the background. Aliens in stasis pods, wind turbines whirring away, reflective water, and of course all the enemy turrets spinning around to aim at your ship. Explosions look great and your ship has some nice little touches like the exhaust blast and even smokes when damaged. The music is pretty cool and quite varied, ranging from atmospheric tones to electronic beats. Sound effects are decent and there's some cool robotic digitized speech as well. The power-up system is quite original here. You collect blueprints instead of collecting weapons, and you have to access this little force field thing which takes you to what I suppose is some kind of docking area in which you can equip any weapons for which you've collected the blueprints. Most enemies are ships or ground-based mechs, and there are plenty of turrets doing their best to take you out. But man, this game is hard. I was playing on easy, which doesn't even let you finish the full game, and I was still getting rinsed. You have a small health bar, so it's not one-hit deaths, but even so, way too hard for me. Absolutely worth a play though. So that was some of the Amiga's exclusive shooters. Have I missed any? Let me know in the comments, or just let me know what your favourite Amiga shooters are in general. Keep an eye out for more in this series. I'll probably do platform games next. Thanks for watching.